What an embarrassing display of performance for the Astros against the Padres this week. There were a couple of positives to write home about in this series. I mean, the pitching was actually pretty good now that I'm thinking about it. But like the offense really just could not do anything for really any bit of this series. I mean, the only game they won in this series was in game 2. They only ended up scoring 4 runs, which was more than enough given how well the pitching did, like I said. But it took us 10 innings to do that. So, but we're going to break it all down for you guys coming up next. Stay tuned. Like I said, man, embarrassing display of performance against the Padres in this series. Now, don't get me wrong, the Padres are unquestionably an excellent team, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, seeing us like dwindle down here down the stretch, it's not really a good thing. I mean, obviously the Astros still have a sizable lead in the AL West. Magic number to clinch is still I believe remains at 7 or something like that. But again, that's pending the result of the Mariners versus Yankees game on Wednesday as of when I'm recording this video, which has not started yet. So we'll see how that goes. But for the time being, I believe the Astros magic number to clinch still remains at 7, if I'm not mistaken. I've lost track of it at this point. But let's break down this series. First things first, let's dive right into a quick little injury update on Ben Gamel. Unfortunately, his injury is a little bit more worse than we had first thought, and unfortunately, it is a fibula fracture for him, so he could be out for pretty much the rest of the season, virtually the rest of the year, even if the Astros make the playoffs. Which, I mean, if the Astros continue to play like this against a rather good Padres team, I mean, we certainly would deserve it, but I mean, at the same time, we certainly deserve better. But diving straight into the series itself, starting here in this first game, Yu Darvish had outdueled Spencer Arrighetti. It was a little bit embarrassing if you ask me. I mean, Spencer Arrighetti had gotten the first 2 outs in the first inning rather easily until the Padres had hit 3 straight hits to score a run, and that would end up being the score as we go into, I believe, the 6th inning or so, or something like that, before a home run by the Padres would make it 2-0. The Astros would eventually chip away in the 8th inning by getting their first run across the board on a Yordan Alvarez base hit, or can't remember. I didn't take a lot of notes on this game, but the Padres would get that run right back off of a home run given up by Taylor Scott. And then after that, the Astros didn't do much in the 9th inning, and they ended up losing this game 3-1. But all things considered, I think you could say that Arrighetti was able to walk away from Petco Park on Monday feeling pretty good about the way that he had dug in and battled against a rather tough Padres lineup that's one of the best in the National League, and certainly one of the best in baseball. That being said, the Padres certainly did not make it easy on him, considering that he threw 102 pitches, his second highest pitch total this year, to complete 5 innings. He did give up 8 hits, 2 runs, but again, that was enough for the Padres to beat the Astros. Like I said, all things considered, it certainly, it was a pretty good outing, especially considering the fact that he was actually able to strike out Luis Arraez, who had actually went 141 plate appearances without a strikeout. So it was a rather historic streak that, of all pitchers to see that streak coming into against, I was certainly not expecting Arrighetti, a rookie, to be ending that streak. So that was really the one positive in this game. It also did not help that the strike zone in this game was absolutely terrible. Yonnier Diaz in particular was rung up on a strike 3 pitch that should not have been called a strike, but was called that anyway. And then Josh Miller, I believe, had ended up getting ejected in this game, arguing that strike call. Might I add, though, the strike zone for all 3 of the games in this series was pathetic. But going here into game 2, man, where do I even start? I guess we'll go straight here in the 4th inning, where the Astros had taken a 2-0 lead from an RBI double by John Singleton and an RBI ground out by Jeremy Pena before a single to lead off the 6th inning by Fernando Tatis Jr. off of Hunter Brown would snap a string of 11 straight retired by him. He would then steal second base on a close play that the Astros had challenged and lost. They didn't review it, of course, but one batter later, Hunter Brown would fall behind 3-0 against Manny Machado. Then he would work the count full on a pair of pitches that he thought were balls, and they certainly were balls, but were called strikes, and even started walking towards first base after both pitches. He would then unleash his frustrations on those 2 bad calls by hitting a home run to tie the game. Now, granted the fact he was probably going to be swinging to unleash his frustrations regardless, but considering the location of this pitch, I mean, that's kind of on Hunter Brown there. Then going here into the 8th inning, a wild pitch by the Padres' next pitcher would score Jordan from third base. And then when Ryan Pressly was able to get the first 2 outs of the 8th inning, Joe Espada would go to his closer here in the 8th inning to try and get a 4-out save. And Hader would be welcomed it to some loud boos from the Padres crowd because, as many of you guys know, Josh Hader had pitched for the Padres for the past couple of years, and last season, of course, was his last with them before the Astros had signed him that winter. But he would come into the game with the tying run on third base, attempting to get a 4-out save. He would end up at first getting called for a pitch timer violation to start the inning, which is a pretty bad spot to call a pitch timer violation, or, to have a pitch timer violation be called on you, I should say, in this situation if you're the pitcher with the tying run on third base. But the umpires would immediately come to discussion for a rules check, and they were able to determine that he had used one of his disengagements, and since there was a runner on base, he was allowed to use one of his disengagements, and thus the pitch timer violation was overturned. But then, after all of that delay, which was certainly unnecessary if you ask me, he would then uncork a wild pitch to allow Tatis to score the tying run, which was, in my opinion, ridiculous. He would get out of that inning unscathed on a line drive that was hit straight to him that he caught out of the air, but that wasn't even the craziest part of this game. Going into the top of the 9th inning, the Astros had Jeremy Pena, I think, lead off the inning with a double. So he was on second base, representing the potential winning run for the Astros. Then Altuve would eventually come up to the plate with 2 outs. He would then hit a chopper towards third base that he had thought was ruled a foul ball because it had actually hit off of his foot, as you can see here in the replay, but it was not called as such. Altuve then took matters into his own hands, or feet, I guess you can say, by taking off his shoe and his sock to protest that, but the home plate umpire was having none of that. I mean, it was a little bit funny, I guess, but at the same time, dude, what is happening with this umpire crew? Like, this was one of the worst calls of the game, and you can clearly see in this replay that the ball had clearly hit off of his foot, and he was very adamant about it as well. Like I said earlier, dude, the umpire crew in this series was one of the worst ones I think I've seen. I don't care if stuff like this happens for a regular season game. I mean, for a September game like this, I mean, I guess I kind of could care about it. I really don't want to see it happen because there probably is a lot at stake, especially given the fact that the Padres were chasing down the Dodgers in the division standings, and they had lost earlier, like, in this day. So, I mean, they were essentially kind of shooting themselves in the foot. But then going into the bottom of the 10th was probably what the worst call of the night, where Jurickson Profar was apparently hit by a pitch in the bottom of this inning. The Astros had challenged this, but upon review, the call would stand, much to the surprise of the Astros dugout and even Profar himself, because he was adamant that he did not get hit by the pitch. But real quick, let's rewind just a little bit and go to the top of the 10th inning, where the Astros were able to get their Manfred runner home thanks to an RBI single by Kyle Tucker. That would end up being the difference maker in this game, as the Astros would went on to win, but it did not come with a little bit more drama in the bottom half of the 10th inning. So I explained a little bit earlier how Jurickson Profar had gotten, supposedly, I should say, was hit by a pitch with 2 runners on base, and the Astros had challenged this, but the call, once again, would stand upon review. And again, looking at replays here, and I'm so surprised that I still need to be showing you guys replays here on screen, you can clearly see the ball certainly did not hit him here. I mean, obviously, did it strike him, like, in the meat of his elbow? No. And I mean, I think even looking on this replay, I would say that it probably just grazed a little bit of his jersey, which, I mean, if a pitch grazes your jersey, that does still count as getting hit by a pitch. So, I mean, maybe they got that call right. And I mean, obviously, the thing about seeing a game in person, I guess, is that you won't really get to see the replay as much, but it's still kind of surprising. The batter himself adamantly stated he was not hit by the pitch. So, I mean, I can safely speak for him and say that he didn't get hit by it. And personally, I can safely speak for both sides in this game. The umpire crew in this game was the worst one, was probably the worst more than any other game in this entire series. I mean, game 3, they were okay, but at the same time, I mean, it doesn't really explain the fact that how horrible they were last night. But the Astros would get the last laugh in this game against this horrible umpire crew, with Greg Kessinger, who had subbed in for Altuve after he had gotten ejected earlier, having not played since mid-July, makes the game-winning play. If he does not make this play, the Astros lose this game and eventually go on to get swept because they ended up losing game 3. But yeah, he made a sliding stop on a catch that was hit by Manny Machado, the league leader in RBIs. I don't think the team leader in RBIs, but he's for sure the team leader in RBIs for the Padres. Had hit it back up the middle, sliding stop, flips to Pena, game over. That's it. What a freaking game. This might go down as this might be a candidate for one of the wildest games of the year. Personally, man, this would have been a gut-punching loss for whoever would lose this game, whether it would be the Astros or the Padres. Thankfully, it was the Padres. I mean, like I said earlier, the Padres were really shooting themselves in the foot in this game because they really blew an opportunity to gain on the Dodgers in the NL West. Now, obviously, I have the Dodgers winning the National League West this season, so I mean, hopefully they don't choke it. It would really be a laughing stock if that did happen, but diving here into game 3, this was just a rather embarrassing game all around because Dylan Cease had clearly outdueled us for 8 straight innings. I mean, he was perfect through almost 6 innings before John Singleton had broken up that no-hit bid and also the perfect game bid, but they were held to just 2 hits the entire game. Framber Valdez had also pitched amazing. I mean, his only one bad swing was on a home run to, I believe, Manny Machado. But, I mean, that swing proved to be one too many because, I mean, it doesn't change the fact that Dylan Cease was easily carving up the Astros, and he's done so a lot in his career. The one time that the Astros were really able to get to Dylan Cease was in the playoffs a couple of years ago against the White Sox, and that was in 2021. Obviously, he's a very different person now. I mean, he's a candidate for NL Cy Young, which is respectable, but at the same time, man, our approach against this guy, we need to freaking fix that, man. Like, what's going on? But yeah, like I said earlier, the Astros were clearly outdueled in this game pretty much over the course of this series. Not to mention that the umpires in this crew were absolutely terrible. Now, like I said earlier, I have a lot of respect for Major League umpires. It's a tough job, and I mean, that doesn't even, and again, it's not even Major League umpires, it's minor league umpires who work in minor league games, little league umpires. I mean, if you're a guy who calls any league of baseball, I mean, I certainly do have respect for you because, I mean, it's a tough job. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, everybody makes mistakes and all that, but there needs to be a way that we can challenge this. Now, obviously, a couple months ago or so, earlier this year, Robert Manfred did hint at the fact that he was likely going to be bringing robot umpires, or, robo-umps, if you will. I think the technical name for it is like an automated strike zone or something like that. But the soonest that could come to baseball would probably be, not for a couple of years now. Personally, I really just want us to be able to challenge balls and strikes. It's been in the minors for years at this point, and I have no idea as to why it has not been implemented into the major leagues just yet. Every single sports broadcast that I've seen a baseball game on, whether it's, a regional sports network, ESPN, Fox Sports, even Apple TV Plus, every single one of these broadcasts has a strike zone graphic on screen that, you normally can't see if you're actually at the game. But this is the beauty, of course, of airing live sports on TV. Because, back in the day when live sports were airing on TV, this wasn't a thing back then. Like, as fans, you can see what the strike zone is like, and when an umpire misses a pitch, or even on MLB at-bats strike zone, or pitch by pitch, or whatever you want to call it, when an umpire misses one of these calls. What is the issue with us being able to challenge it? I mean, like I said, the strike zones in all 3 of these games were terrible. And I mean, it certainly needs to change. I really hope this umpire crew does not get to be in the playoffs. Because, I mean, that's just it. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I've rambled on long enough about how frustrated I am on this series. I mean, apart from game 2 of this series, I mean, it was okay. I mean, it did prove to be a tough series. The Astros eked out a win in game 2 that they're rather lucky to get, if I'm being honest. They really should have deserved to lose, given how terrible they played. But, I mean, they were able to squeeze it out nevertheless, I guess. Next up for the Astros, they will be kicking off their final homestand of 2024 in the regular season, at least, with 4 games against the Angels and then 3 with the Mariners to follow. This is going to be a big series, so hopefully the Astros can gain some ground whenever the Mariners come to town, and I'll preview that series in the next series recap video, which will be recorded on my new phone, by the way. This current phone that I'm using is still my current one I've had for about 5 years now, but I'm going to be able to get it on Friday, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, if the Astros can get some ground on the Mariners, at least had the lead at maybe 6 games or something like that, preferably 3, just because, I mean, worst case, they do tie us. I mean, they won't, or actually, they will actually be able to be in first place by the tiebreaker. But if it could be at least 4 games, which is where it's at right now, then, I mean, I'll be okay with that because, God forbid they sweep us, they won't be able to be in first place. Obviously, Astros won't be able to clinch the division at home. That being said, it should be a good series. Hopefully the Astros can regroup. Personally, if we play the Angels this weekend, much like how we did last weekend in Anaheim, then this series should really be no issue for us. But anyway, guys, that's all I got to share in this video. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Want to watch any of my other videos? Click these ones above my shoulders. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed, like I said, and I'll see you guys later.